I think it was 92, 90, about 98, I think it was. I was making a bowl for my wife that we could set an artificial plant down in, and you know how a planter is shaped, you know, like this, and it has a little band around the top. I made one, and she wanted a little flower on the top of it. And also, you know, I didn't know there was an AAW. I didn't know there was organized wood turning. I figured it was a bunch of, you know, retired shop teachers, you know, that were probably something. Anyway, so I made this thing, and I was spraying it. When I flipped it upside down, you know, she wanted this flange she could drape ivy across it. Anyway, when I flipped it over, it looked just like a pilgrim's hat, except, you know, without the buckle on the front. And I said, Kathy, go look at this. And she goes, it looks like a pilgrim's hat. I'm gonna try to make a hat. So I made about 70 or 80 of them, I guess, before I heard of a guy from Denmark named Johannes Michelson, and called him up and went up and took a course with him. Supposed to be a 3-day course, but we only got 2 days in. But learned a little bit about what he was doing, how he was doing it, and I just started, you know, turning more and more, and I'm a little backwards. When I started turning, the first piece I turned was a candlestick. The second piece I turned was a hollow form. So I got to know what tools I had would do without being able to see inside of a hollow form. I got to know where they are, and I got fairly efficient at that. So I turned nothing but hollow forms for years. They just became really, really easy to me. And then I got bored with that and started making hats, and things just really, you know, took off. I was in several galleries before I did the hats. Just with I always wanted to do natural edge bowls, and everybody had told me that they were really, really difficult to do. And it was the president of Louisville area Woodturners. His name was Ken Reed. He promised for like 2 years he was going to come over and show me how to do natural edge bowls. And you know, he would say, hey, I'll be there Saturday morning. That went on 100 times at least, and he never would show up. And so I just got frustrated one day. I said, I think I can learn how to do this. I just grabbed a piece of cherry and threw on there. And did we lose something?
No, go ahead. We're just somebody else trying to come in the room. Bringing more people in.
And so I started turning natural edge bowls, and you know, wow, you know, that's where my heart still is. I haven't been able to shake that one. I love the natural edge stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've seen some of your pieces.
I like doing the big stuff, and you know, now that the internet's exploded and all that kind of stuff, you got your wise guys out there, and I'll say, oh, this piece is say 22 inches across, and you always get someone that, oh, you Photoshop that, you know. They always question, is it really that big, you know? And so that's kind of, I actually brought a piece out that everybody questioned. Oh no, that piece is probably 9 inches wide, and it's a footed bowl.
Wow! Oh my God!
It's got feet on it. You can see the feet, big ugly feet, and so you can see the inside of it. But it's about 22 inches across. I just like making stuff that's different. Everyone was talking about doing footed bowls, and I thought, well, that would kind of be funny. So me and my brother collaborated on this, and he's the one that got me into carving. And I just really enjoy doing the natural edge stuff. Anything that's kind of, I like doing these. I like challenging myself with these shapes, these big closed-in pieces. And I don't use any hollowing tools or anything for it. I just use a bowl gouge. And I've developed a grind is very forgiving, as you know. And you can crawl in there with that bunch, and oh, you can get such a fine cut. And it's actually, you know, once you're past the apex and you're really closing it in, you flip the bowl gouge around the way you're not supposed to use it, and you just do a push scrape, and it cuts so smooth you can start sanding with, you know, 180 grit. and it's just such a fine cut. It's a cut you can't get with any hollowing tool, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
At this point, anyway.
You know what? I can vouch for what he's saying. I saw him, Chris, at Cincinnati at the symposium, and they did on Saturday night, I believe it's called Dueling Lathes. And it was Stuart Batty. It was Stuart Batty against Chris Ramsey. And they both finished up about the same time. It's kind of planned that way, I think. But when it was all said and done, they both got a piece of wood that was about the same size, and they had to make a bowl, and it had to weigh less than a certain amount. And I guess Stewart's did weigh underneath what it was supposed to. And then Chris all of a sudden took his up, picked it up, and he said, yeah, but could he do this with his? And he took that bowl and flipped it back and forth like a piece of paper. It was so thin. I got a dozen pictures of that. And, you know, I got to give you those pictures one day, Chris. But
I'd like to see them.
Yeah, I have them all. You and Stuart battling. That was kind of
a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that.
All right, what got you? You started doing hats. All right, and I know you did some hats for some pretty popular people, pretty well-known people. I understand George W. Bush. And you went to I saw pictures of it. You went to the Oval Office to measure his head. How did that ever come about?
Congressman Hal Rogers is a very good friend of mine. He just lives a couple streets over from my house in town. And they had a fire in his office. He's the 5th District Congressman, Kentucky. And they'd had a fire in his office, and the place was gutted. And they were getting bids on doing the fiber optics, and it had to be somebody who had a secret security clearance because, you know, their communications are, it's got to be, they don't want anybody else knowing stuff, some of the stuff. And I had a secret security for, you know, from a job that I had worked at for several years in California. And his secretary called me up, and she said, hey, looks like you're the only one in town that does fiber and phone systems and, you know, Cat 5, 5E and all that. And I said, yeah. She said, well, come give us a bid. So I went over there and I gave them a bid, and they said, you know, you're half of what the phone company charges. And I was still making, you know, damn good money. So anyway, I got it, and they said, when can you start? And I said, I'll be here tomorrow. So I was in there, and I was running all my fiber and Cat 5, and I had a Kentucky baseball hat out of ambrosia maple on my head, and I'm on a 16-foot ladder, and I'm way up on the top rung and running my O-rings and everything and getting it up in there, and Hal walks in, Congressman Rogers, excuse me, walks in, and he's smoking a big Cuban cigar, and he looks up and he, son, what's that on your head? And I said, it's a baseball cap. It's a hat, you know? And he said, is it made from a tortoise shell? Because, you know, it was shiny. And I said, no. I said, it's a piece of wood. Oh, he said, I saw you in the newspaper and on the news. He says, come down. So I came down, and we walked over into his little makeshift office. And we talked about wood hats and everything, and I told him I was going to go home at lunch. I lived around the corner, and I'll bring, you know, a cowboy hat back and a top and else back, and that he wanted to see. So I think I brought back out a derby hat and a top hat, and they just had a little plastic, kind of like a tent, you know, visqueen tent, keeping the dust out of where his office was. It was very small. I just set the hats on his desk, and I went to work because I was a one-man show. I mean, I had employees. They were more of a pain in the butt than, you know, they're worth at times. So I did everything. I ran the wire. I got the jobs. Billing everything. Anyway, I went back and kept running wire and everything. And his secretary came in, and she said, hey, the congressman would like to see you in his little office. I I said, okay. So I walked in there and he was looking at the cowboy hat and admiring it. He said, this is just amazing. He said, I saw them, but I had no idea they were this light, you know, and all. You know what comments you get from the hat.
Oh, absolutely.
And he said, I have a dear friend of mine who would really like one of these. And we got to talking, and he said 2 weeks earlier he had been married in the Tennessee governor's mansion. One of his best friends was the governor of Tennessee, and so he said let's call him up. And I said okay. And I'm sitting there, and he calls this guy up, and there was a woman that answered and said, hey, this is Hal Rogers. And she said, oh, how you doing, Hal? And he said, I'm doing good. And he said, where's W? And I don't know who W is, you know. And she said, oh, he's out riding his horse. And he said, well, is he in communications? And she said, yeah, I can patch you through. And, you know, she said, you know, don't hang up, you know. And she said, I'll, you know, see you and your wife soon or something, you know. And I don't know, about 10 or 20 seconds go by, and this guy picks up the phone, and we start talking. Hal starts talking with him and telling him about me and telling him about the cowboy hats. And he says, well, let me talk to this guy. And Hal says, his name's Chris Ramsey, and you're on speakerphone. He can hear you. And he says, hey, Chris, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. We just talked about the hats, how to make them and everything. And, you know, after talking about them for 5 minutes or so, you know, if I'm not working, I'm not making money. So I need to get back out there. And I said, hey, I got to, you know, cut this short. And I said, I'll make you a hat, and I'll give it to Hal, and he can, you know, he can get it to you. And he says, oh, okay. And so I got up and I went back to work. Well, at the end of the day, his secretary said, well, how does it feel to talk to the next president of the United States? And I said, I don't know. I said, Hal is friends with the governor of Tennessee. And I talked to him this afternoon, and I said, I'm gonna make him a hat, you know. And I said, man, all the entertaining that they do, and people in their office, I said, I'll bet you I can sell a few hats there, you know. And she said, no, you weren't talking to the governor of Tennessee. You were talking to George W. Bush. And I said, no. I said it was the governor of Tennessee. And I said, I guess him and Hal have nicknamed each other. He kept calling him W, and then it hit me. Oh, duh, you know. And so, yeah. So anyway, I ended up making the hat for him, and I didn't have his hat size. More importantly, the shape of his head, because, you know, they don't stretch. And I just looked at him and I thought, you know, he's got to be about a 7.5, 7 5/8. So I just made one, gave it to Hal, and he actually took it to Washington, D.C. And Hal was, or Congressman Rogers, he was chairman of appropriations for Homeland Security. And, you know, the Gulf War had happened. And they had me scheduled to go to present it to him in a little ceremony in the Oval Office several times, but it kept getting bumped, you know. And then with 911 and everything, security was so tight, it just wasn't going to happen. And I said, look, I don't need to go to the White House, give him this letter, you know, and that's good enough for me. So Hal gave him the letter, gave him the hat. And I was actually on my way to do my first demonstration ever, which was for Carolina Mountain Woodturners. And they had 850 people scheduled. And I was on Highway 40 driving along, and my cell phone rings, and it said the White House. Well, I'm in communications, and I see that on the caller ID, and I thought, oh, this is one of my friends playing a joke on me, you know. And then some guy, he says, hey, this is John, and he said, President Bush would like to talk to you. And I said, yeah, okay, put him on, you know, thinking it was a joke. And, you know, he click, 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 and he gets on the phone, and he says, Chris, President Bush here. And he said, Hal gave me the hat. He said, it's just a spectacular work of art. And he said, I want to invite you to the White House. And what are you doing Tuesday? And I said, I'm supposed to be, you know, making hats. And he said, well, he says, how about taking a day or two off? And he says, we'll get you in here. And I said, okay. And he said, hey, this guy is, he said, I'm really looking forward to meeting you. And he said, this guy's going to get, you know, your social background check and all this other stuff. And he said, you know, I'll see you Tuesday. So I said, all right, don't hang up. So this other guy gets on there, he says, he gets my information, and he says, I need a fax number where I can send this fax, and we'll need you to sign it and fax it. And that was back when fax machines would go to your house and you wouldn't answer your phone and roll over to the fax machine. So anyway, I said, well, here's the phone number. And I said, the guy's name is John Hill, and he's the president of the Woodturning Club up there. And I said, don't send it for about 5 minutes. Let me call John, tell him not to answer the phone. This fax is coming. So I called John, and he said, don't let him read the fax, because we don't want this getting out. You know, after 911, security's tight. We don't want anyone knowing that you're coming. You can tell everybody that you want afterwards, but don't tell anyone until you're back, until it's over with. Okay. So I called John and I said, hey, there's a fax coming across. And I said, John, it's important that you don't read this. Just take the fax and put it in a folder, and I'll get it when I get there. I'm an hour away.
Yeah, it would have been me. I'd have read it as soon as you said that.
Yeah, John did. So I come pulling in his driveway, and he comes running down the driveway with this fax. And he goes, my boy, you're going to the White House. You know, he was all excited. I was excited. And I said, John, you know, you're not supposed to know that. And anyway, we went over and set up my lathe. I take my lathe everywhere I go.
And I know that.
Set up my one-way 2436, got everything ready to go. And so Saturday was the demo, and John was introducing me, and it's standing room only, and I'm just terrified because I've never done a demo like this before. And as he introduces me, he said, you know, Chris has kind of risen to the ranks of the top tier, and he's very proficient. And he said, and on Tuesday, yeah, he did. He said on Tuesday, he'll be to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Bush in the White House as an invited guest to present him with a hat. If one person had called the White House and said, you know, just to check it out, just to see if it was really true or anything, I would not have gone. Not one person called. So pass the background check and all that kind of stuff, and you know, boom, there I went. It was great. He's a super nice guy, you know. So I met at the,
So how did you get to make one for Dale Earnhardt and Charlie Daniels?
Okay, so Dale Earnhardt flew into Monticello, Kentucky. He was doing a big promotional thing with Coca-Cola at the time. And my brother-in-law, his sister, was one of the managers at Walmart. So we worked it into where we could get one to Dale. And we had his dad's number 3 on the front of the hat. And he took it and signed it, and then he gave it back. And I said, well, that was kind of for him. And so anyway, he signed all kinds of stuff though. And then Charlie Daniels, one of his backup singers lives on the Tennessee River, and had ordered a hat for her husband, who was, it's that road, it's called Antiques Roadshow. Well, he's the old codger. He's the old codger on there that does the African artifacts. And she ordered it as a birthday present for him. So I sent her the Curvex ruler. She measured his head, and she said, can I pay you to deliver it? So I went down there. I didn't know she was Charlie Daniels' backup singer, you know, or background singers or whatever. So went down there, and we started talking, and spent a couple hours with him. And she told me that, you know, she was one of Charlie's background singers. And I said, you know, I'd like to get a hat to old Chuck. So that's how that one happened. And big 10-gallon hat I made for him. And he was wearing it in a bar, and a fight broke out, and the hat got broken. And he was, you know, they all hang out together after these concerts and everything. And he was screaming, get my hat, get my hat. And he was trying to get out of the way, and his hat got broken. So, but you know, hey, Jerry Meesemer made him one too.
Was that right?
A couple years older. Yeah, Jerry, probably 10 or 12 years later, Jerry made one for him. Yeah.
Jerry's a good hat maker too.
Yes, he is.
Okay. We have somebody here that I would like to introduce you to. He's a pro turner also. He's from New York. I forget exactly where in New York, but his name is Jim Hector. And I see him in the background there. He's smiling. Now, Jim came to Geneva, and I hosted him at my house. And he demonstrated at 4 of the clubs, 3 clubs that I belonged to, and the one I had started. And he got up one day, and it was one of his days off, because he was here for like 7 or 8 days, something like that. And one of the clubs met on a Saturday, then Tuesday was Erie, and then the next Saturday was Buckeye, and then on Friday night he did one for the club I started. But he got up one day on one of his off days, and he said, Ron, he said, I've always wanted to make a hat. He said, I've just never, I don't know exactly how, I've never, is there any chance we could do a hat? And I'm thinking, boy, I feel pretty honored here. Yeah, there's a pro turner asking me to teach him to do a hat. Yeah. So I have a bunch of blanks, in 55-gallon drums soaking in water. I said, yeah, we'll get up first thing in the morning, and I guess I have 2 lathes in the shop, and so we threw a couple of pieces of wood on there, and we measured his head, and we made it, and got it all bent up and everything, and it was dry enough for him to take it home. And unfortunately, it was just a little bit too small for his head. But he took it home. His wife loved it, and guess what? It fit her perfectly. I said, Jim, use your head. You made it for her.
Oh yeah, Captain was on that.
But I thought he's back there laughing. I can see him.
Yep.
All right, listen. There's a couple of videos here, or not, well, one video, but there's a couple of web pages I'd like to share with everybody here.
Okay.
And I did find out, Chris, that you will be able to speak while these are up. So if you've got anything to say about them when we do it, let me try this here now. Okay. All right, you should see. Do you guys see pictures of Chris's work?
I see a really good looking guy
Yeah,
on
we
the right, on the left.
Okay, all right. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, Chris, but I know that, okay, you will be able to speak if there's anything you want to say. Well, right now we're showing that natural edge hollow form on 3 legs. You don't have a name on it or anything. Well, it's too bad you can't see it, so I could, oh well.
Yeah, I've made like a couple thousand of those, so
Yeah.
I don't know what
And then-
it will be.
Yeah, and then the big one you had with the hands holding, looks like it's holding the earth.
Yeah, I've got that one here.
Okay.
That one's about 23 inches in diameter and probably about 20, it's probably 22 inches tall, something like that. I like doing real super thin stuff. It turns out better if you turn them thin. So, and I kind of got in the habit, of doing the hats.
All right. Well, there's several pictures here. They could see it. You guys can go to the just Google Chris Ramsey Woodturner, and all of these come up. Somebody's trying to talk in the background, and I'm not. I keep hearing them trying to say something, but I do have a video that I would like you guys to see. This page. Let's see if I can do this right. Yep. Okay. Here's a picture of Chris and with former President George W. Bush, and Bush is holding his hat that Chris presented him. And this one, I want, there's another picture. I guess this is in the Oval Office where you're shaking his hand, and there's a picture of George White. Go ahead.
So when you go to the White House and you're an invited guest, they search you about 5 times. And I was wearing an old suit that I had, and I had in my suit pocket here, I had the Curvex ruler. And you're driving up Pennsylvania Avenue, you know, in a limousine. And even though, you know, it's the White House Senate and everything, they still search you. So you get out and they put mirrors underneath the thing and they pop the trunk and they look at everybody and they wand you and dogs sniff you and you get back in and then you go to the next checkpoint. Then you go to the next checkpoint. It's all the same thing over and over. Excuse me. And then when you go into the gates of the Oval Office, we just drove right in, drove down Pennsylvania Avenue, which you can't do unless you're, you know, in a limo with some dignitaries, but drive down, they open up the gates, and there's guards, make sure no one runs in, and we pull up to the West Wing, and there is a Marine station there, and, you know, he's basically not breathing, just standing in attention, and you go through a metal detector there, and then you step into the West Wing, and they wand you, and then from there on, you're good to go. So I got wanded 4 times, and none of their equipment picked up that Curvex ruler, which has 2 pieces of stainless steel metal in it, and then a metal snake-like thing, you know, like those snake lights, you bend them and they stay bent. Their equipment didn't pick it up. So anyway, we're sitting there, and we were in the, what were we in? I forget what room we were in, but anyway, one of the Secret Service guys comes up and he says, hey, he says, I want to let you know, you're not going to be going. There was, I think, 7 other people that were going to meet the president. I didn't know any of them. I knew that one of the ladies that was there, her son was the 2nd person killed in the Gulf War. So he wanted to invite her there. And there was another guy, another artist who did bronze stuff. But anyway, he says, okay, you know, they just kind of give you a rundown. Okay, President Bush is going to ask all the questions. Don't ask him any questions. I guess they, you know, they want to control how it all goes, which is understandable.
Sure.
And I said, okay. And Hal Rogers, Congressman Rogers, sitting there, and he says, hey, when he says, well, they're all going to go into a separate room, but President Bush wants to meet you in the Oval Office. And I thought, oh, wow, you know. And Hal Rogers, Congressman Rogers said, he said, hey, when we're in there with President Bush, he says, Chris wants to measure his head to make, you know, a custom fit hat, you know, of his choice. Because the one that he made him, you know, he didn't measure his head. And he said, and the president has requested this. And he just kind of, you know, kind of shrugged it off. And then he came back and he asked a question about it. And he says, what do you have? And I said, well, I have to just measure his head. And he says, no, you won't be doing that. We don't want you to put your hands on it. Okay. And he starts walking away, and Congressman Rogers says, well, we're going to ask him when we get in there. And that guy turned around real quick and he said, no, you won't be measuring his head. And I said, I heard you the first time. Your fight's with that guy. Okay. And so he says, Chris won't be measuring the president. He turns around and he starts walking away. And Hal says, well, we're still going to ask him. Well, that went on. Anyway, I was just like, whatever, you know, I'm staying out of this one. So they start taking everybody into another room, and he kind of grabs me and Hal, and he just said, you know, be quiet. And we let everybody kind of get in front of us, so we were like the last one. And they just had a couple Secret Service guys that went up and shut the doors, and then we waited in the room that we were originally in, and he met with all the other people, which took about 35, 40 minutes, and then they got him into the Oval Office, and then this guy come up and he said, you know, President Bush is going to see you in the Oval Office now. And I figured it'd be, you know, a minute or two. And they open up the door, and there he is standing there. We came in through the side entrance door of the Oval Office, which is about that thick. It's probably 1.5 feet thick. And he's just sitting there, and he was looking. He's wearing a pair of cowboy boots, and he was looking down at his cowboy boots and looks up and he goes, hey, Chris, you know, come on in. It's just normal, just a normal guy, you know. Went in, shook his hand and everything. And we talked a little bit about, you know, very little about politics. And he started asking questions about the hat, and I started telling him. And then I said something, and that guy just looked at me. That Secret Service guy just kind of looked at me because I'd asked him a question, you know. And anyway, as we're talking, Hal says, Congressman Rogers, excuse me, he says, W, he calls him W. He says, W, he said, we talked about measuring your head, and Chris liked to measure your head for a custom fit hat. And he said, yeah, that's great. He says, what do you need? And I said, just a piece of paper and a pen. I wanted the White House stationery. That's what I figured I would get. And I wanted a White House pen. One of his aides pulls out a 3-ring binder and gives me just a piece of paper. And instead of a White House pen, she hands me a Bic, a Bic pen. So anyway, I sit him down at the Oval Office, and I pull out that Curvex ruler, and I get it out about that far, and a hand grabs me from behind me. And I turn and I look at this guy over here who's taking the Curvex ruler from me, and this other guy taps me over here, and he says, hey, he says, let me ask you something. Totally distracts me from this guy, you know? And I said, yeah. And he said, how did you, what is that? And I said, well, it's just a little thing, you know, and you put it around the head, and it keeps the shape. And he said, so what's in it? And I said, 2 pieces of stainless steel and then a big metal snake-looking thing. It's just covered in rubber. And I explained how to use it and all that. And he said, how did you get that in here? And I said, it was in my shirt pocket. And he said, didn't they check you? And I said, yeah, 4 times. And he said, and didn't you come in through the metal detector at the West Wing? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, and I thought, uh-oh, someone's going to be in trouble, you know. But anyway, they went and x-rayed it and determined it to be okay, you know. So he brought it back, and we were just sitting there talking. It probably took 45 minutes for them to check it out, figure out what it was and everything, and bring it back. So I sat him down and wrapped it around his head and measured his head, and, you know, had him sign it and all that good stuff. But that Secret Service guy, he was not happy with me because I did 2 things I was not supposed to do. But anyway, kind of interesting. There was probably 15 Secret Service guys in there. Ari Fleischer was in there, Andy Card. And I was standing right next to the president when he was told that Saddam Hussein's 2 boys had just been killed in a firefight.
Oh, no.
Little history there. Yeah, it was wild. Man, it was pretty amazing.
Okay, we got another little something on a website that I found online, and what's this girl's name, Chris? Do you remember?
Am I clothed?
Yeah. This black woman that you made a hat for.
Is it Willa Brigham?
That's it. Yep. All right. You guys got to see this video. This is okay.
She wrote a song about the hat.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not getting any audio, Ron.
Hold on. You're not getting any audio. Okay, I know why. Hold on 1 second here.
She is a 2-time Emmy-winning artist.
Okay. Let me see if I think that might do it. Hold on here. This was something that I didn't. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the audio for that. I thought I could. I wish I could have. Yeah, you guys can. Yeah, just go to Google Chris Ramsey Woodturner, and it's about the second one on the list. You'll see it, and I mean, she actually wrote this song and sang it, and I thought it was just the cutest thing that I ever saw. It's amazing, though. We tried this afternoon, and that did work. I don't know what I'm doing wrong now, but
yeah, she's a sweetheart of a gal. She's great, and she lives in North Carolina. She's a 2-time Emmy winner, and just a great. And she's promoted the heck out of me. And you know, she went and bought one of the hats out of a gallery in Asheville. And then she called me up and she sent me the recording of the song and her singing it and all that. And she asked if she could put that on her website. And I said, oh, absolutely. So when it was her birthday, I made another hat and sent it to her. And, you know, the first hat she bought, I hadn't measured her head. So I sent her a Curvex ruler. And she said, what's that for? And I said, well, I'm trying out something new. And I don't know if it's going to work, but, you know, I just want to, you know, you're someone I know and I'm familiar with, just, you know, try it. She didn't know even what it was for. And so I made her second hat. And so she actually wrote a second song about the hats. She's a neat lady, though.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool video.
You know,
Right.
you get your stuff out there in galleries, and it's amazing the people that you wouldn't assume that would go through a gallery and buy one of your hats. There's the guy, he's the movie producer in Hollywood. His name is Joel Silver. He did all of the Matrix movies. He's done most of Tom Cruise's movies. He bought a walnut top hat. He also has a ranch, they call it. We call them farms here in Kentucky, but he has a ranch in North Carolina. And after he produces a movie, he has all the actors and actresses in, and he puts them up and wines them and dines them, and they all go in, and he plays piano, and he's got that walnut top hat on the Steinway piano on a stand, and he likes to show it off. And then recently I made well, a few years ago, I turned a big three-legged bowl. I started getting into the carving, you know, legs on them. And it was in a gallery in Maine or Massachusetts, somewhere up there. Anyway, Soledad O'Brien strolled in there and bought it. And she's HBO sports commentator. She's got her own company. She's doing all kinds of stuff. And then I made it for 4 different hats for 4 different governors, and 2 of them Kentucky governors, and of course Willa. And there's been a slew of actors, actresses, professional athletes. Just, you know, I can't afford my stuff, but they can.
Yeah. Wasn't it Bush that after he got out of office, he contacted you and purchased some more from you?
Well, he tried to purchase some more. I wouldn't let him pay for it, but he was still in office. I met with him 3 times. Met with him at the White House, and then he came to Louisville, Kentucky, when we were trying to help get Ernie Fletcher elected, and then he came to London, Kentucky, and did a speech. And so I got to meet with him all 3 times. And yeah, he had ordered at the White House. He ordered a big, I wasn't doing the carved legs yet, but I was doing pedestal bowls, big natural edge pedestal bowls. And he ordered a large one of those for the First Lady. And he ordered some of the mirror frames. I told him about the mirror frames that come off the hat. So I gave him the mirror frames and then the mini hats and a little nested set of bowls and a couple other things. And he just loved the hats. It was about 2 weeks before I was supposed to meet with him the second time. Stuart Batty, Mike Mahoney, Bonnie Klein, Richard Raffin. There was a bunch of turners at the Ohio Valley Woodturners Guild Symposium. And I pulled Mike Mahoney aside. He's a good friend of mine. And I said, hey, don't spread this around, but I'm going to the White House, you know, in a couple of weeks, and I can get, you know, a set of your nested bowls or whatever you want. I can put them in the president's hands, you know, and I said he will leave that in the White House permanent collection. That's typically what they do with, you know, if you double the order, he'll take one with him, but he likes to leave it there. So luckily, you know, I made him 5 or 6 hats. So I've got one in the Bush Library. One or two is in the White House permanent collection. He's got one at the Crawford Ranch. He's got one. He gave his dad one. But anyway, so I approached Mike Mahoney and then Bonnie Klein, and I said, you know, your little spin top box. I said, he might appreciate something like that. It's her signature piece at the time. And then Stuart Batty called me about 3 days after, and he said, he called me up and he said, hey, I'd like to get in on this too. And I've known Stuart for a long, long, long time. And I love running Stuart's day and just, BSing him a little bit. And I said, Stuart, I'd love to do it for you. I said, but this is only for people with American citizenship. And there's this long silence on the phone. And I said, I'm just kidding. Just send me a piece. I said, you gotta hurry up because I'm leaving in about 3 or 4 days. So he sent one of his long stem goblets, super thin things, and so I gave that to President Bush, presented him with stuff from Mike Mahoney and Bonnie Klein. And I was just trying to help bring some other people into, their notoriety a bit. I got real lucky with it. So I was trying to help friends out.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. That's for sure.
No. And there was one other piece that I made. I think you saw it at the Ohio Valley Symposium last October, a year ago, October. And there were so many people that looked at the piece. People that saw the piece, they had my back and saying, because there were so many people saying, oh no, it's probably the size of not even as big as a basketball. And I had purposely left a little flashlight sitting there so you could look down inside. It's a huge, it's a 30-inch tall hollow form. Here.
I saw it. Yep. I saw it in Cincinnati. Yep. That's it. Yep.
You back up. I get a better shot of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's got I can't get my hand inside the hole. It won't go in there, but I set that flashlight so people could look at this thing and try and figure out how I did it. It's got the pre-carved legs on it.
It's beautiful.
And no one can figure out how I did it. So I'm going to share a little secret with you guys. I'm not stupid enough to hollow something like this out. That would take me 5 years. This is 2 bowls, okay? One bowl comes up to where the bark line is, across here, up a little higher. And the other bowl is glued to the bottom bowl. And no one figured that out.
I would have never guessed it.
None of them could guess out how I did that. Yeah, it's real light. The whole thing's about 1/8 of an inch thick.
You should have told Trent I used your hollowing system, Trent.
Yeah, well, I told someone, said, how did you do that? And I said, I just used a bowl gouge. That's the only tool that touched that. And they said, a bowl gouge? And they said, it must be 3 or 4 foot long. And I said, no, it's just one of Doug Thompson's bowl gouges. They couldn't figure that out, That's a fun piece. I like figuring out how to do weird stuff like that, It's enjoyable to me.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Chris is sitting in his studio. If you see that white door up in the upper right-hand corner, that goes into where the lathes are. So that's how close you are when you take a class from Chris. Prize, okay, some from Randy to everyone. Randy showing us something here. Oh, there she is. Let me see if I can spotlight her. Hold on. Okay, leave that on. Leave that on. We're going to spotlight you. Just leave it there. Okay, hold on 1 second now.
Tilt your head down, Randy. Tilt your head down, Randy.
There you go. Can everybody see that? Did you do that? Did you do that? Can't hear you. You got to hold your face part down. All right. Unmute your microphone. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It is a Chris Ramsey hat.
Where did you get it?
I bought it. It was made on April 1st of 2004. It's number 391.
Holy smoke. 391.
Where did you buy it?
Huh?
Chris asked where you bought it.
I'm not telling.
Uh-oh.
I'll tell
I
you what,
paid more for it than I really wanted to, but it was well worth it.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I will look, I number everything I do. I can catalog where they go, what gallery they went to and all that. So I'll find out where it went. But what's it made out of? I have that recorded too, but what does it say on the inside? What type of wood?
Butternut.
Oh gosh, you got something there. There was only one butternut hat made from me. I'm sure that you'll probably made some, but I only made.
It is my prized possession out of all my turnings that I've bought.
I'll pay you twice what you paid for it. And,
Oh, no.
huh?
No, no, no.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's
You know,
good to see.
I want to talk a little bit about, you know, it's an evolution. You're always trying something different. You're always trying to make the hats better. And I used to just make the hats, you know, no logos or anything. This one I made for my son, Jonathan, and it's got a, get the light off of that.
We can see it.
That's good. That's good. We can see it.
We can see it.
So that's how I used to do logos. I take a razor tip burner and just burn the logo on there, and then I sand off the afterburn, and then I just took Indian ink and put Indian ink on it. So now, let's see. Now I started using Tester's paint. I had seen a model. I don't remember where it was, but this model was like 100 years old, and the paint on it was still pristine. And I asked the curator, it was in some museum, and I said, "Did you guys recondition it? Did you redo it?" And she said, "No, it's all original." So what I thought, if Tester's paint's going to last that long, that's what I want to use. So I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not, but I started floating there. You can kind of see it's almost embossed. So instead of using ink, I'm using paint, and I burn the lines, and then I'll float on like the black paint. And when you burn the lines and then sand it back, the paint won't migrate outside the lines, and you can pond it up. It actually, you know, it's about not quite an eighth, but maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And then I floated the gold, and then the red, and then the white. And so it actually feels embossed. You can feel the logo. On the other hat, it's just flat, you know. And one of the things that you were talking about is, how did I do that in the band? You know, you get a fire there.
Yeah, we can see it.
So you take the hat band, say if this is the front, I just laid out the artwork here. Let me get it here. Laid out the artwork from here to here, and I sand off everything around here, except for the top burned line and the bottom line that's burnished on. And then I burn the logo in there, sand it back, and then the only thing left to do, you know, you float the ink on it, and then the only thing left to do is there's a little bit, let's see, there's a little bit here that you have to fill back in. And I do use color pens for those, but they're archive quality and non-bleeding, non-fading, all that good stuff. So, so I did these. Well, if the Niners would have won the Super Bowl last year, these would have gone to a gallery out in California.
Oh, wow. Very nice.
Ambrosia. I think you can see the ambrosia on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Anyway,
Mhm.
so people are they're liking this embossed feel. You know, it's just another dimension of texture that's added to it, and people, wow, how did you do that? Float the paint on there. That was all.
Yeah.
That's how we did it. You know.
Well, when we come in January, you're going to have to show me and Paul.
Yeah,
Anybody
yeah.
have any questions here? Everybody's pretty quiet tonight.
So how long does it take you to turn a hat these days, Chris?
These days, hour and a half, I guess. If I'm in the studio by myself, I used to do them in 40. They were trying to see how fast I could do it at John C. Campbell when I was teaching. I guess I was kind of like the Thursday night entertainment or something. And I did one in 45 minutes, start to finish. It was a little bit, well, the piece of wood wasn't super fresh, so it didn't have a lot of water, because there's no way I could have done that fast with water in there, because it takes, you know how it is, it takes 10 to 15 minutes just with a fan blowing on it and you blowing the water out. So luckily I just turned it real quick, sanded it, and then threw the lacquer on it and got it off the lathe. So, but
Chris, how's the sawmill doing?
pretty good. I actually hauled in a monster red oak log. I've cut 3 logs so far. I got that thing set up, and then the Christmas orders and all that, I took priority, so I kind of put it on the back burner. But I went out to Oregon a couple of years ago and bought a big leaf maple burled tree that was burled. We sliced it up, sliced it to about 3 inches thick, and came pretty close to getting seriously injured. Those slabs are 1,000 pounds a piece, 12 feet long, and it's 56 inches wide, and they're big and heavy. They've lost about probably 300 pounds now. You got to let them air dry for 6-8 months before I put them in a kiln. But there was a lady in town who had this 6-foot oak tree, and not a blemish on it. I figured it was probably hollow. I wasn't going to tell her that I was going to take it until it hit the ground. I said, if it hits the ground and it's not hollow, I'll take it. So I made her a bunch of bowls and stuff out of the branches. The branches were over 3 feet thick. But it's 16.5 feet long, the butt section stump, and I couldn't move it. I can move some weight, but I couldn't. It's over 20,000 pounds. So I called the guy with the rollback, and he shows up and rolls his tow truck back, and starts winching it up on there, and broke his cable 3 times. And he had to fix it. So he fixed it 3 times, and then he's trying to get it up on there far enough, and it broke again. And he said, that's it. He said, let's go. And I said, look at your front tires. They're off the ground. Because there was still 5 feet of it hanging off the back, and it was the butt section. And, oh, it'll be okay. And I said, your front wheels are off the ground. And he said, well, with the geometry of how it's sitting, it'll only go up. And then, and I said, okay, so what if you're driving down the road and you need to turn and your front wheels are off the ground? He goes, oh, no, I'll put on the brakes. They'll hit the ground and I'll turn. He's nuts. Anyway, so we came out here and up the hill, brought it right here to the studio, and I haven't cut it up yet, but man, it's gorgeous wood. I mean, I turned about 20 pieces out of it.
He drove on that street that you live on with the front wheels off the ground. Oh my God!
Yeah, unbelievable.
It's
and
a nice.
Wheels, oh yeah, it's got a grade to it. His wheels were just bouncing like this. It would bounce, it'd go up, and then he'd hit, and it's pretty straight up through there. So when he needed to turn, he'd just back off a little bit and get it pointed. It's nuts. He only charged me $100. I couldn't believe it.
I was driving my pickup truck on that road, and I was gritting my teeth.
And listen, we've had 18-wheelers up here bringing in burl from California and all kinds of stuff. So
we have a question here, but it's not completed. It says, Chris, what would you, and that's it. Randy, go ahead and finish your question. That's, nope, nobody. Somebody typed the question. Says from Randy, what do you make with your red oak? What would you say my butternut? Oh, then she wants to know, what would you say her butternut hat is worth?
Well, see that, to me, it's probably worth more to me than anybody else, because you don't find butternut anymore. You can find butternut, but it's always milled. It's hard to find a big butternut tree to make a hat out of. And that was the very butt section of it. And the other side of the tree was rotten. That's why I only got the one hat out of it. I don't know. It's probably worth a couple $1,000s, maybe a little bit more than you paid for it. You probably paid about $400 or $500 for it. Let's see, 2000. You probably paid $400 or $500 for that hat. It's worth a whole lot more now. I've got a collector in Detroit, Michigan. He's the guy that did Mako Body Shop. He wanted that hat so bad, and if you wanna double or triple your money, I'm sure he would. He'd like to take it off your hand.
Chris, she paid $600 for it.
Yeah, that's what I was selling the galleries. I was selling them the galleries for $250.
Wow.
Johannes told me, he said, you need to start out selling them the galleries at $250. I said, okay. So I did that for 4 or 5 years. Then he said, you need to raise it to $350. So I did that. I listened to what he said, did exactly what he asked me to do.
Who was that asked you that?
Johannes Michelson.
And by the way, just for the record, if anybody's not sure where the first hat came from, actually it was, as far as man knows, was done by William Murdoch in 1779 on a lathe that he made himself. It's in the book called The Lunar Men. I read the book cover to cover. And he was applying for a job with Murdoch.
It's an engineering firm in Soho.
Okay, and he was twirling this hat on his finger during this interview, and Murdoch said to him, he says, "What is that hat made of?" And he said, they called it timmer back then, Timmer. And
Right.
he says, "Timmer?" He said, "Yes, sir." He said, "It was on a lathe of my own contriving." Those are his exact words. And Butner, what's his name? He said, "You know what?" He says, "Anybody that can do something like that is somebody that I need to hire," and he got the job.
He got the job.
Okay, Chris, there's another question by Bill Blasek. Chris, do you know where Chief Wahoo is going right now?
Probably to the bathroom. He's got to be pissed off. I can't believe that. Bill's a good friend of mine. He's been here. Hello, Bill. I wish I could see you, buddy.
Hey, Dan, Chris.
On the report on your good health. I'm tickled to death to hear that. You guys know that they got rid of Chief Wahoo, and
Yeah.
but I wanted to do something nice for Bill, and so he didn't know it was coming, and we snuck it into him, and one of Bill's friends that was here, he said no, Bill will want Wahoo on there, and that was a fun logo to do. I really enjoyed doing that. So
I believe he's got it. That's the hat he's got in his background on his picture on this meeting tonight.
I've also told Chris that when I die, that hat's going into the coffin with me.
He said that hat's going in the coffin with him.
oh goodness.
Well, any other questions from anybody while we got Chris here? What I was intrigued by more than anything, other than spending time at Chris's studio, and I learned a lot, even though I was making hats before I went to his class. I learned a lot while I was there, and I'm much quicker at it now than I used to be. My hats before I went to Chris's class would take me 6 hours, 6.5, sometimes 7. Paul Stubbs was at my shop one day. It took him 10 hours and he still wasn't done. I was going to bed and he's still out in my shop trying to finish his hat. I bet his wife yelled at him when he got home that night. But
It's a true story.
that's a true story. That's right. But after taking Chris's class and learning his grind, I use that grind for a lot of things now, Chris. It's number one, like you said, you could take the finest cut with it, and it's quicker to sharpen. 2 minutes, 2 seconds at the grinding wheel, and you're back turning again. But I've got it down. Of course, I'll probably never be as good as you are, but I've got it down to about 2.5 to 3 hours max.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
So not fast enough to do a demo yet. I do mini hat demos. I did one for Ed Siegel. He's here. I did it for his club in New York. The woodworkers.
Yeah, good. Woodworkers of Central New York is a great demo. Really appreciate it.
And I did a demo for them. And I'm doing a demo. In fact, Chris, while we're at your studio in January, we got to do a baseball cap because they want me to do for the Buckeye woodworkers and woodturners, they want me to do a mini baseball cap. Now I have done baseball. I have done baseball caps, but only a couple, never a mini. So, and I could do the mini hats when I did the demo for Ed's group. I did it in about and with talking and everything during the demo, I did it in about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So
The baseball cap's the easiest one to do because you don't have the OG going up into the cap part of it. You don't have the brim where it upticks for cowboy hat. It's just a straight, it looks like a jungle helmet or a pith helmet. It's just straight in, boom. That's all there is to it. And there's
by
no button on it.
by the way, Bill Blasek just put a note in the chat. He said that there is no one better at the one-way coring system. So
Yeah, when Bill and when he came in, he wanted to scoring, and I said, well, okay, so I had a maple burl sitting there, and I showed him how. The one-way coring system is designed to get 4 bowls. I didn't know that. Now they have a video. It's not designed for natural edge. Well, I don't turn salad bowls. If you can buy them at Walmart, I'm not going to make them, And there was no video. So I just set this thing up and started playing with it. And I thought, well, I figured what you do is you set it, you figure out your depth of your first bowl, and you set it and you pour your first bowl out. And I thought, if I want the bottom of that bowl to be 3/4 inch thick in the bottom, and I want the walls to be a 1/2 inch thick, it will start out at a 1/2 inch and it will gradually go to 3/4 of an inch thick. And all you have to do is move that base plate. You have to take into consideration the width of the cutter, which is 3/8 of an inch. So you take your 3/8 of an inch and you add your 3/4 to that, and that's how far you move the base plate forward. So what I do, I just take a pencil, mark the ways, I move it forward that distance, and then I rotate the knife in and I move it back to where the wall thickness is a 1/2 inch, lock it down, do your second core. So I'll get 3 bowls out of the number 1 knife, usually 2 bowls out of the number 2 knife, 2 to 3 bowls out of the number 3. I've gotten 14 cores out of 1 piece of burl. And, to me, you're going to go out and find the burl, put the effort into getting it, cutting it and bringing it in, or even worse, forgive me, burl salesman, but God forbid you got to buy a nice burl like that. You want to maximize your yield. You want to get as much out of that burl as you can. So my method works great. It's foolproof. You can't go through the bottom. You can't go through the side because it's all it's set. you know? And people always say, well, but you're just stuck with your basic bowl. No, you're not either. You do that base plate, you got a base, a deep base, okay? You can skew it the other way, and you can cut plates. It's more versatile than people give it credit for. Hey, I want to say real quick about if any of you are interested in the files for the mini hats or for the full-size hats or three-legged bowls or whatever, drop me an email and I'll put the files out there to you. I have to email them because they're large files, and I'll just do them one at a time. But there's no secret. I don't keep secrets. The other guys can keep all the secrets they want. I don't care. There's not enough people making hats that's going to affect me. I've made 4,000 full-size hats, and I've made over 5,000 mini hats now. So I've come a long way with it. And you know, I don't mind sharing my knowledge. And you know, I spent a lot of time making these files to where you can, you know, these online deals, you're not going to learn from. You actually have to have some pictures, have some instruction. And that's what I tried to do with these files. I haven't had one person call me up and say, you can't make a hat by that. And there's, you know, someone has done a video on how to do hats. And I did everything that was said in that. You can't make a hat video. No names mentioned, but I don't keep secrets. I'm free to share any of it. All you got to do is drop me a message, and I'll send you the file.
Okay, Chris, I have several people sending me a chat note that they want your email address. So if it's okay with you, because I have everybody here on my mailing list, I will send it to them.
That's
So
right.
everybody here that's on here yet, you will, either later tonight or tomorrow, you will have Chris's email address. And I'll also send the links to the video that I was trying to show you and you couldn't hear it. So you'll be able to watch that video. You'll get that link along with his email address. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Good enough.
Hey, Chris,
All right.
in those files, do you talk about your grind in the files, or can you show us your grind or talk a little bit about your grind?
I will send you that information as well. I don't know if this is going to help or not, but
We can't see it, Chris.
you can't see it, can you?
You know what? No. I have your video of that grind that you sent me from your
Yes.
phone. I
Right.
will include that in the email to the members.
Yeah, it's really the advantage to grinding by hand. Now look, it's not for everybody. I will say that. It took me years to develop that grind. The thing is, it's edge free. It is so forgiving, and the cut you get with it, I haven't used any other grind, and I've used them all. I haven't used anything that will cut as smooth as that. And so fast to sharpen. It's a matter of seconds. I mean, after you have the initial profile on there, I can sharpen about 20 to 25 times. I use a 350 CBN wheel for touching up, just sharpening the grind, and then I use an 80 grit for redoing the profile. After you sharpen so many times, you know, you'll start to get those plane intersections where you get that little point that sticks up, and that's a catch point. You know, you pull that off with this grind, but I mean, literally, I can turn the grinder on, and in 3-4 seconds, I'm done. I'm back overturning. Really fast.
Actually, what I did, guys and girls, we were planning on going to Chris's class, and then, you know, one thing led to another. It kept getting pushed back. And I asked Chris I used Thompson tools. So he told me what to buy. I got a hold of Doug, which is local to me. It's 60 miles, and I can drive there in 45 minutes, an hour at the most. Anyways, I went and I bought brand new, what Chris told me to buy, U-shaped bowl gouge, 3/8 1/2 inch. So then I told Chris, I said, we're having a hard time getting to your studio. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ship these to you. I'm going to give you a return. I'll give you a return box with the postage and everything already on it. I said, when you get them, put your grind on them, put them back in a box and ship them back to me. And I got him back. I got him back, and I think it was about 6 days total. 3 days to get there, him to grind it, put them in a box and ship them back to me. And I looked at that grind because I was trying to duplicate that grind from pictures, from a video he sent me. It's just not that easy. It's so much better when you can actually see it in person. And now, you know, that's the only grind. I mean, I still use the standard swept back grind on some of my gouges and so forth, but I'll tell you the truth, had I known about his grind before I bought the Johannes sharpening system, I would have saved myself about 300 bucks. No, I have to say Johannes's grind, don't get me wrong, it's a good grind also. It has its uses. His vector grinding system it's a good system. There's nothing chintzy about it. It's every bit as good as the Wolverine, in my opinion, as far as, you know, the jigs and the setup and everything. They're comparable. They put two different kinds of grinds on it. Paul actually, with Johannes's grind and his jig, he came up with a little variance to what Johannes says to do. And Paul, and I give Paul a lot of credit for this, it works great. I mean, it's a better grind than what Johannes tells you to do with his grinding system. I just think it's much better. But I do like Chris's grind for a lot of reasons. Like he said, it's very forgiving, especially when you're working on the inside of the top of the hat. It takes the finest, easiest cut that you can possibly get, takes off the other, there you go. That curve on the inside, it's tough. But his grind, his grind does a terrific job. And what I like about it more than anything, like Chris says, you go over to the grinder, 5 seconds later, you're done. You're not putting it in a jig and measuring a protrusion. And, you know, you go over and zip by hand, and you're back at the lathe and you're turning. And that's what I like about it. So it has its advantages, but there's a learning curve. But you know, just
sure.
like anything else. I know that. I know I learned an awful lot when I took his class, and I'm really looking forward to it again in January.
Great. I've got an appointment with the doctor I've had some issues with the thumb joint here.
Yeah, you told me.
I went and saw Morty Kaz, and then we're going to see how soon I can get in to get that done, because I'm in 29 years of turning, and it's I'm paying the price a little bit right now, but it's a fixable surgery, fixable procedure, and I'm looking forward to being pain-free again. Yeah.
I'm answering a question here on the phone or email. Somebody's asking about prices, so I'm just telling them to contact you. They're asking the prices for your class. It's better just to contact you via email or phone.
Yeah. You know, like everything else, COVID shut down everything that, shut down the world, and, I'm no exception. It gave me time to get caught up on some of the other things that I wanted to do. But I'll tell you, when the Christmas orders started rolling in, I was a pretty happy camper to get back on the lathe and really just make the shavings fly. And it's amazing. I didn't turn for about 7 months, and your brain knows what to do, and your hands know what to do. But it takes you about, when you haven't turned for months, it took me about 6 hours for my brain to start talking to my hands. start communicating with my hands. And once they started, then I was pretty confident again. So yeah, I went to Pennsylvania. You can kind of see this column right here. It's a big cluster burl. I saw a tree on sale on eBay, and the guy wanted $1,300 for it. And I think if I do this, you can see my mantle way back there. Yeah. That's made out of a cluster burl log. It's a sugar maple cluster burl log. So I made a deal with the guy. I said, hey, I'll tell you what. He said, well, the guy I said, wait, obviously it was worth more than $1,300. It was 6.5 foot diameter and it was solid. And I said to the guy, I said, why do you want so much money for it? And he says, well, they're going to charge $1,000 to cut it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I can be there in 2 days. I'll bring some friends with me, fully insured. We'll take it down and I'll pay you $300 and I'll make you a hat out of it. Okay. So we took off, and I made 4 trips back and forth getting that burl back to Kentucky, but it was worth the effort. The hands piece that you referred to earlier was made out of that. Probably the only piece I kept out of that, but we did put a couple columns in the studio kitchen, and then I made a nice mantle out of it and burned the heck out of it, and it was great stuff. It was a fun time.
How long did it take you to build that studio?
It was just me and my father-in-law. It took us about a year. I did everything though. I mean, I didn't pour the concrete and I didn't hang the drywall. I helped a little bit hanging the drywall, but I called a guy who can hang it and finish it cheaper than I could buy it,
Oh yeah, sure.
So, but I wired it and plumbed it and did all the tile and all the finish work, and they wanted $6,000. These panels that you see back here, they're big leaf maple burl panels, and they wanted $6,000 just for the veneer. So I bought a couple of great big burls from Oregon and sliced them up myself and cut them to a 1/4 inch thick, and then let them dry, put them on a drum sander and sanded them down, got them to about 1/8 of an inch thick, and laminated them onto some Baltic birch plywood and made my own. And there was 96 panels total, and it cost me $600. So I saved a ton of money.
Oh, sure.
Plus I wanted stuff like this. I wanted all these bark inclusions, and I wanted all the imperfections, take a little coffee grounds and grind them up in one of those little coffee grinders and smear that over the rotten spot, put a little CA glue on it and run it through the drum sander. It looks just like bark, I wanted those imperfections. I wanted, and I didn't want patchwork. I didn't want, when you buy, a big piece of veneer, there's 6 pieces that are all glued together,
Oh, yeah,
they're not book
sure.
matched.
No.
And you can tell. I didn't want that. I wanted solid pieces. So a couple of big burls, and shoot, I only used I used all of one and maybe 1/3 of the other. So I still had stuff left over to turn.
Okay,
But,
now
it was
promise.
things that build it the way I wanted to build it and put in it what we want. And now we've got an outdoor kitchen and a parking structure and out there, and it's just, I love it. The studio, I think I got 15 windows in there, so you watch the deer run by and turkeys and all that, and while you're turning.
Yeah. All right. Now I promised everybody I was going to do this, so I'm going to do it right now. We're going to ask you, we do this meeting every 2 weeks, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the next one will be 2 weeks from today. We'd like to include you as one of our members so that you can come to our meeting as just as a member anytime you want. All right. So I'm going to add your name to the mailing list. So there's one more for us, ladies and gentlemen. So now we got, let's see, Jim, Ed, Jim Duxbury's in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jim is here. Yeah. So we got about 4 or 5 pros amongst us now.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So, all right. Well, you are, believe it or not, you are the first guest we brought in to Woodturning Forums. So we've been
Okay.
doing this. Ed and I have been doing this for about 3 months. We started it. And you are the first guest that we brought in as a pro turner. So congratulations, you're number one.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Ed said thanks. Ed said thanks
Very
for
nice
being
to
here.
know
We
that.
appreciate it. Ed's the
Oh,
one,
my
Ed
pleasure.
Siegel. Ed Siegel is the one that him and I started this. Actually, the way it all started out, I posted something on Facebook to see if there would be any interest. And then all of a sudden, Ed writes to me and he said, you know what? He says, you're not going to believe this. He said, I was just thinking about this the other day. I said, well, good. You know what? It would be good to have two of us doing this because you're not going to be available every single meeting. I'm not going to be. I said, between the two of us, hopefully we can, and it did turn out one day he had to do it because I wasn't available. So, and then now I also have Dave Qualls, and he is learning how to use the software and so forth. So between the three of us, I think we can keep it going, hopefully.
Sounds great.
But, all right. Any other questions, anybody? No? All right, Chris, I want to thank you personally. I loved your studio when I was there. I know Paul did, talks about it all the time. And both of us are looking forward to coming back again in January.
Great.
This time we want to take it for 3 days. We already told you that. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Paul wants to do a baseball hat, Outback hat, and a cowboy hat. And that's fine with me. All right. And I have to see how
I'll show
you do
guys
that.
how I do all that stuff. I know you guys wanted to spend a little more time on the logos, and they're quick
Yeah.
and easy. They really are. They're a lot of fun too, and it adds so much to that hat.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Ask Bill Blasek; he might agree with me.
Oh, Bill's he has nothing but praise to say about you. I mean, he thinks you're probably the best turner that ever lived, and he knows most of them.
No,
He
I'm
knows.
just
He
having
knows.
fun.
Yeah, Bill's been around, so he
Oh, yeah.
he you know.
You know how I found Doug Thompson was through Bill. You know,
I can believe that. Well, yeah, I can believe that. Actually, I don't remember exactly how I found out about Doug, but I actually worked for Doug for a short time, but it was just too far to drive, and I was sharpening tools for him. But and nobody can sharpen a tool the way Doug wants it sharpened. I mean, it's just got to be perfect, or it's just not good enough. So in order for us to,
when I get my tools from Doug, I don't want him taking off steel. I'll take my own steel off.
yeah,
But I'll tell you, I've used every manufacturer's tool, and nothing comes close. Nothing comes close to Doug's tool.
and I'm fortunate, like I said, that I'm only 60 miles from him. I call him up, make sure he's going to be there, jump in my truck, and away I go. An hour later, I'm sitting in his shop, So
That's great.
yeah, and he treats. You know what, Doug? What I like about Doug more than anything is he treats you like a person, and he and I mean, he will not do you wrong. If there's a problem with this tool, without question, here's a brand new one. And we have another question. Hold on, from Jim Duxbury. Great article. Chris had a great article in the Sunday paper, the Parade magazine. Ask him how many bowls were ordered after that.
Hats. How many hats?
Oh, how many hats? How many hats?
It's kind of like going surfing. I used to surf a lot when I lived in California, but one of those articles will hit, and you just ride the wave. it'll hit
Yeah.
and it peaks and then it starts to drop off, and then the next article will hit or there'll be something on TV. When I got back from the White House, in less than 2 weeks, I had over 400 custom hat orders. 400 from that little, that was the initial visit too. So yeah, it's everybody wants what the president has.
You know, Chris, I'm going to tell you a little story. And again, I haven't been doing hats but a few years now. The New Day Cleveland show, Channel 8, Fox 8. Somehow or another, they heard about me or saw me or something somewhere. I don't remember exactly how. Oh, I know what it was. I have my stuff displayed at an art store in the Ashtabula Harbor. And they were down there and they saw my hat and they picked up my card and called me. And she asked if she could come out and film me in my shop. And they did. They came out and filmed me. And it was 2 days later, after it aired, it's 2 days, some guy who was opening up a wood flooring store in Fairview Park, it's a suburb west side of Cleveland, contacted me. And he said, "Where's your store located?" I said, "Sir, I don't have a store. I got a shop in the backyard. It's 1,000 square feet, but it's a shop in the backyard." And he said, "Well, I'd like to come there." So he made an appointment. He came here. He bought every hat I had in the shop, even the ones that didn't have a finish on them yet. He said, "I'll put a finish on them." The man spent, and I don't charge anywhere near, what you can get for a hat. He spent almost $2,000 here that day. I ran white to Woodcraft and I bought my 18-inch Laguna bandsaw.
And you have fun making this stuff. I feel guilty that people are paying for it because I have so much fun creating it. But you got to feed the family, so it sure beats sitting at a desk.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
you look at the friends that we have all made through wood turning. I mean, it's a fantastic fraternity.
absolutely. I've gone places and seen things that I never thought I would ever see in my lifetime. I never even knew there was such a thing as a wooden hat. I was invited to the Pittsburgh Club as a guest by Dave Dudney. Dave Dudney at the time was an AAW, I guess, member at large or something. He was on the board, and he invited me to the Pittsburgh Club. Well, Mike Trucco from Columbus, he was the then president of Central Ohio Woodturners, and he was doing the demo at the Pittsburgh Club that Saturday morning. So Isabel and I got in the car. We drove. It's an hour and a half drive. So we get there, and I'm watching this guy turn his hat. And I said, "You know what?" On the way home, I told my wife, I said, well, she's girlfriend. I said, "You know what, Isabel? I don't know how, but I am going to make a hat." So I got Johannes's DVD, and I watched that thing probably 70, 80 times, just so I could see the order. By the way, I have nothing against the way Johannes does it, but I like the way Chris does it better. But anyways, So does Chris. So does Chris. Okay. But anyways, I watched that DVD, and what I was watching more than anything was I wanted to have everything made before I even tried to make my first hat. If you don't have the bender, you don't have the jam chuck, you don't have all of that. Once you get to that part of the hat, what do? You can't finish it. So I made sure I had everything. Yeah, I made sure I had everything. And Paul, he was constantly, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And he was making his. And Ken Brown was still alive at the time. And Ken and I, we were trying to learn at the same time. And then I ended up joining the Central Ohio Woodturners. And I went to Mike Trucco's shop on 3 different occasions, Ken and I, and we spent the whole day there. But he can do a hat in about 3 hours. So we do one in the morning, have lunch, do another one in the afternoon. And I always took the blanks to them because I have no shortage of blanks around here where I'm at. And so eventually I was able to do it. And then when I found out about Chris, and I said, you know what? I got to get in this guy's class. And for 2 years, I wrote Chris. And I never got an answer. But what it was turned out to be, all of my emails were going to his junk file. And I was in Doug Thompson's shop one day, and he was talking to Chris on the phone. And I said, and I heard him say Chris a couple of times. And I said, hey, Doug, is that Chris Ramsey? And he goes, yeah. He said, tell him to answer his damn emails. And he looked, I guess, in his junk folder. He found all my emails. He said, Ron, I'm really sorry. I wasn't getting these. So,
you know, there's a little bit of a back. I appreciated turning, you know, teaching at Aramont and John C. Campbell and a couple other places around. But, you know, they'll put 14 students on you. And if I was going to Aramont or John C. Campbell and I wanted to learn how to turn hats with 14 students, I know I'm not going to get the time that it takes to do it. So when I have students come in, it's a maximum of 2 people. 2 people, you can keep up with every question.
yeah.
No problem.
We have a question. We have a question here, Chris. It says, have you ever made a barbershop hat? My husband is a member of the Thoroughbred Chorus.
I would need to see a picture of it. I'll Google it and see what it looks like. I don't know what that hat is. But I'll certainly take a look and see. If I haven't made one, I'm gonna make one.
There you go.
I've got a hat that I need to make for a country music star, and he requested this hat a few years ago, and I never really had time to get it done. But it's a cross between a short brimmed cowboy hat and a top hat, and I've seen the hat before. I've never seen one make one like that out of wood, but I'm gonna get it done and get it to him, and that'll be neat. That'll be a neat guy to meet. So
Okay.
Hey, Chris, what do you use for a finish, and what kind of machine do you use?
I have the finish that I use a pre-catalyzed. You don't have to mix it. It comes pre-catalyzed, and it's a sanding sealer with vinyl in it. And I'll blow on 1 fog coat or tack coat, if you will, followed by 3 other coats, 3 heavier coats. Let it dry about 5 minutes in between coats. What's great about this is you do not have to sand in between coats. I haven't met one person that loves sanding. I don't like it either. I like turning and on to the next. So the quicker you can, get it turned, the better job you can do turning, the less sanding you have. And I started out with conversion varnish, and I went to shellac, and then I went to some brush on stuff, and you have to sand between every coat. With this stuff, you don't, unless you get a run. If you get a run, you have to sand that run out. But you just spray that stuff on there. It goes on, just so nice. It lays down. Let it dry for 5 minutes. Put your next coat. I let it dry about an hour to an hour and a half, and then I put on 1 coat of pre-catalyzed lacquer. It's the hardest finish known to man. It's much harder. Everyone says, "Oh, the epoxy is harder." No, you can get your fingernail down in epoxy. You can't in this. And they have improved it to a degree that, when you used to set a cold drink down on a kitchen table and you lift it up after half hour and there was a white ring, it doesn't do that anymore. So they're much more water resistant now.
She's showing you a picture of that hat. Can you see it?
Oh, I can't see anything.
You can't see it. Okay, hold on.
No.
Let me see.
But I'll blow on 1 coat of the pre-catalyzed lacquer,
Okay.
and then you let it sit. And it comes in super shiny. It's a 1 to 10 system, and I want it as flat as possible. I want you to be able to see the wood, not the shine. but I do want it to have a little bit of a sheen to it. Like this, I would probably consider this it's a little too shiny. And I can tone that down with another coat. And that's another thing. This is easy to repair. If someone breaks a hat or anything and they send it back to you, you know, you can fix it, and you don't have to sand it all the way down to wood or anything, and you can go right over the top of that 20 years later if you want. And it's just a wonderful finish. I do everything in the pre-catalyzed sanding sealer with vinyl, and I forget the name of the company that I'm getting it from. They're out of Louisville, Kentucky, but they ship all over the place. And I can give anybody that's interested in that, you know, if you have a club, you know, I buy about 20 gallons of sanding sealer and 20 gallons of lacquer at a time, and 30 gallons of the lacquer thinner. And there's a ratio mix, but I can also give you guys, you know, what I use, where to get it, and the mix, you know, ratios and all that. And it's great. Stuff never goes bad. You can leave it in a gun. I mean, I hadn't sprayed for probably 7 or 8 months and forgot that I left it in the gun. And I just opened up the gun and stirred it around, put just a little bit more thinner in it, and tested it out. I'm great. I just went ahead and sprayed with it. It just doesn't go bad. So it's very, very forgiving, and no sanding between coats.
Anyone else? Dave, you look like a man who's in deep thought.
Hey, Dave.
This is just great information. I love it.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, you managed to teach me how to make hats 11 years ago, and that was a class of 13. So,
Where was this?
John C. Campbell, 11 years ago.
Wow. And well, I'm glad you picked it up. It's just, to me, I would rather, if I'm in your shoes and I'm going to pay that kind of money, if I have a question, I don't want to wait 35, 45 minutes for you to show me how to do that. I want it right now.
You didn't have your studio 11 years ago, and you remember you split the class too. You said, I'm going to work with half of you today and the other half tomorrow. You know, here's a chunk of wood, do something. So you wouldn't work with all of us at once. So.
Right. I think I took 4 full-size hats a day till we got them knocked out, and everyone else was either making natural edge bowls or mini hats.
Yeah.
That's typically what works best in that situation with that many students.
Yeah, it worked for me. I don't know about the other guys. I haven't seen any of them since.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate you saying that.
Chris, you don't paint, you don't clean your spray gun?
Oh, yes, I do. What I was saying was I had finished, I'd sprayed a couple of pieces of artwork, and COVID hit, and, you know, it's just like unplugging the phone. The phone wasn't ringing, and I just forgot to clean out my guns. It was that simple. What I do is after I'm done spraying, I'll pour it back into the can of lacquer, or I take a 5-gallon pail and I pour it down into 1-gallon cans. Pour it back into the can. I put probably 1 inch of lacquer thinner in the bottom of the cup, put it on there, and I just spray it out for probably 20 or 30 seconds. And it just cleans everything that's in the system out. And I'll unplug the air. I use an HVLP, high volume, low pressure system. And it has a heating element in it. It's a 4-stage unit, which you don't need a 4-stage unit. And now they've perfected the guns to where you don't need the whole system. You can just get an HVLP gun, and you'll need a regulator to knock the pressure down a little bit, but they do pretty well too. The system I have is an Apollo, and it's basically a vacuum motor. And after it runs a little bit, it heats up the lacquer, and that hot air blowing across that lacquer, blowing it onto the hat, it just lays down. There's no orange peel. It looks like a piece of glass, and it dries really quick. So
Yeah,
I mix the for those interested, and I can send you this information. I mix the sanding sealer 50-50 with lacquer thinner, stir it up and spray it. The top coat, I do about 80% lacquer and 20% thinner, and it's only one coat. You know, you build your coats with the sanding sealer and then let it dry, and then one coat. And I've had everybody, professionals and everybody say, what are you using? How do you get that finish like that? It is so simple. I'm into easy. You know, I want these to be as easy as possible. And, you know, again, I hate it when you get a run, because then you got to stand that out. But if you just get in the flow of what you're doing and, you know, a little bit of practice, you won't run it, you know. And also I blow them on kind of heavy, and I have a fan running. I have a big exhaust fan that takes all the fumes out. And if I see it starting to run, I'll tip it upside down and hold it upside down, put it away the way it's trying to run, and just then kind of twirl it in front of a fan. And in 20, 25 seconds, it's set up enough to where it's not going to run again. So it's very forgiving.
I spent a lot of money because of you with that fan and HVLP system. And Isabel and I drove all the way to Cincinnati to buy that thing. No, it's well worth it. No, it's absolutely well worth it. I go in the corner of my shop now, and I've got it all cleaned out in that corner, and that's where I do my spraying. I turn that fan on, and I'm right in front of the fan, so takes everything out. That's all it, you know.
And the fan, I think the fans right now, it's an explosion proof fan. They don't call it explosion proof, but it's a sealed fan.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can cause a spark. It's all sealed. And I think, you know, if you type in explosion proof, add about $1,500 more than what you're going to pay for this fan. It's through Apollo, and I think it's $232 for that fan. And it's a 24-inch fan, 3-speed motor.
Yep, that's what I got.
120 volt.
Yep. That's what I got.
Yep. Well worth the money.
Yep. Okay.
And, you know, with the motor sealed like that, you know, it's not going to absorb junk and get all over the, you know, the internal wiring of the motor. And the first one that I bought wasn't sealed. I didn't want to pay the extra money. And after, you know, 5-6 years, it started getting hot and smoking and shutting off, a safety feature. But these are great. I mean, they're just fantastic. Who else got a question?
Anything else? Looks like they might be done. Okay.
Oh, they went to sleep. I'm good.
No, they're all awake. I can see them. All right, Chris. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time and coming to this meeting for us. I know there were a lot of people looking forward to it. We had quite a few people here, and we still got a lot hanging in there. So it was very interesting. And
any questions? Just email me. You can get my email address from Ron, and email me, and I'll get right back to you, and hopefully help you guys out a little bit and save you the hassle of trying to figure stuff out. You just read it and try it, and it should be easy enough for you. It's I've had good success with it. So
and
it's free.
Yeah, there you go. I will send everyone his email address, the video on sharpening his tool, and the link on that woman that made that song about his hat. And then you guys can contact Chris if you're interested, and get what you need. Okay?
All right.
All right.
Been my pleasure.
Thank you again. Thank you again, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming,
see you guys.
everybody. Appreciate it. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.